so far, but Knox County cannot continue to issue debt and continue to kick this into the future as the federal government would. We don't have the ability to, of course, print money, and we cannot just endlessly sell bonds. I think our debt's increased from $400 million to over $600 million. It's about 9% a year just in the last 6 years. We cannot continue to do that. I would suggest that we look at everything. Again, I agree with Steve on. I'm not in favor of across the board cuts. Just everybody, you have to take a 3% lick or 2%. I think we need to see where efficiencies are in place and put in place business efficiencies and business production modes whenever possible.
While we're discussing efficiencies in government, what is your take on the possibility of metro government consolidating the county and the city, at least for services and some duplicated jobs? Start with you, Mr. Shouse.
Well, obviously, I would just be one of about 200,000 voters if that decision is to be made, because, of course, the voters would have to make that decision. In theory, I'm for metro government. I have no big problem with it. If it's the greatest thing to come down the pike, they would be everywhere. But you can think, I can only think of a few: Nashville, Davidson, and Lexington, Fayette County. But in theory, it eliminates levels of bureaucracy and duplication of services. I think we have taken some substantial steps forward in getting politically passing it. I'm not saying it would pass, but if you look at the past campaigns, one of the major reasons the people in the county say, well, I can't vote for that because of the city's debt. Well, suddenly the city's debt now is about $215 million, and the county's well over $600. So the debt issue, I think, is bordering on being irrelevant. There's other issues. The top cop, of course, is a hot political button. Is it appointed? Is it elected, and so forth? But in theory, I think metro government would benefit Knox County, and I would certainly, if I had the vote on commission, I would vote to put it on the ballot to let the citizens make that decision.
What about you, Mr. Drevik?
I agree. I think it's something you put on the ballot for the voters to decide. It's not something commission themselves can or should try to ram down the people's throat. It's one thing to say that there are efficiencies to be had. Perhaps there are, but just saying it doesn't necessarily make it so. You have to demonstrate to the people that there are those efficiencies to be gained by consolidation of the government. But like I said, it's one of those things you put on the ballot and you let the people decide, and you've got to have that kind of overwhelming desire for it.
Speaking of putting things on the ballot for voters to decide, I want to talk a little bit about these charter amendments. And it's one of those things where even being a person in media, I'm like, oh no, here we go. We're going to talk about this. Only because it is very complicated. I mean, if you actually look into the wording of each of these amendments, they could have unintended consequences perhaps, or at least that has been proposed that they would. And of course, there's a lot of legalese going on there where different people would say that it means this or it means that, or, oh, the overarching intention is this. What is your opinion about these charter amendments? If you were, just as John T. voter, what would you say? Is this a good idea? Are they all? Should we just vote them all in on their face?
I would say that Commission did a big disservice when they voted, or when they did not vote to put the individual measures as individual ballot initiatives. The fact that things are grouped together, it's making it hard on a lot of people. There's one or two things that they don't like. There's in particular one thing they don't like on each of the white and the orange ballots, and it will probably cause these initiatives to not make it. There are some good initiatives in there. The anti-nepotism proposal is very good, very well written. The conflict of interest proposal, it's a good idea. To me, it's too vague and it needs to be strengthened. It's a good first step, but it doesn't get us all the way there. Inspector General has its merits. That's something I would like to see have a little more discussion, because I've heard a lot of people saying we'd like this to be a more accountable position, maybe not appointed, maybe elected. I think there's merits to both arguments there, but just the fact that they may not necessarily pass doesn't mean that we're dead in the water. There's a lot of these things that Commission can do by simple resolution and ordinance. We can have our own anti-nepotism and conflict of interest proposals without having a charter amendment. We can actually change the size of Commission without a charter amendment. That's something in the county charter that the Commission can do by a simple, I don't know if it's a majority or a two-thirds vote. I forget which one it is.
Two-thirds.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things we can do without having to do the charter amendment. But it would have been great if if they had been on individually.
I agree with Steve and practically everything he said. It would be so much more educational to the public, to the voting public, if they were on there individually. Now it's all or nothing. It's almost, baby with the bathwater. If you are favoring appointment of these so-called fee offices, but not favoring the reduction of county commission, what do? They're all lumped in there together. I think it would be so much more equitable if they were item by item. That said, they're on there for there's two charter amendments, so they're not on there yet. But in theory, they will go on there, and I think this group will get the petitions together. And I think it was a matter of money for them to get 9 or 10 petitions. Would have cost them $1 million instead of their spending probably still a small fortune, $150,000 or something. But I think it would be so much more equitable to be able to vote on them individually instead of lumping them all there together. And if I do get elected to this position, I would certainly support putting them back on the ballot if they fail in November, or individually, and put it that way, individually.